This Steve Jones Show podcast is now loading. The Steve Jones Show podcast is presented by Sunbury Motor Company, Purdy Insurance, and Brewers Outlet. Bringing you an in-depth look at Penn State sports and more. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. The Steve Jones Show is presented by Sunbury Motor Company, Purdy Insurance, and Brewers Outlet. Now from the Sunbury Motor Studio, here's Steve Jones.
All right, great to have you with us on the show today. This half hour being brought to you by our good friends at Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 to 15 in Columbus, and online at sunburymotors.com. Ford Kia Hyundai, the best of new inventory, great pre-owned inventory with the Sunbury Motors guarantee, which is great to have because that, all right, that gives you peace of mind when you buy. Because they have great pre-owned inventory there. Terrific service department, whether it happens to be quick lane inspections, routine, difficult. It is all at our good friends at Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. Waiting for Neal Coolong to jump in here. And as we wait for him, one of the things I am going to talk about is the possibility of the NFL renegotiating its TV contract early. And by doing so, obviously, to up the ante and also make some decisions about where the market is in maybe 2028. As opposed to today. And trying to look ahead to where it might be in the early 2030s. Is it more about streaming? And for the NFL, I think we're taken aback. They were taken aback by the fact that the NBA got more out of ESPN than the NFL did. And there is no comparison between Monday Night Football, ratings-wise, and anything the NBA has. Even the NBA Finals. The NBA Finals were down 24% this year. There are Monday night games that drew more than the NBA Finals this year. But that's what I find to be interesting. As to whether or not the NFL is going to do this with the idea they can get more money. And the question is going to be, even with streaming services, over-the-air still works because, for example, if you have Hulu or you have Yahoo, whatever it may be, okay, you still get NBC, Fox, CBS on there. I mean, you still get that. And that's where, what I find interesting about all this is even if you go streaming with another outlet, and I also think there's a play in here for an 18th game, but you have to have a new CBA or an addendum to the CBA to do that. They were allegedly going to talk about the 18th game this summer. That's been put on hold. But you know eventually they're going to get it. If they do get it, they'll probably put a second bye week in there. They also would start Labor Day weekend. Right now, which sport owns Labor Day weekend? College football. That means that the NFL would own Labor Day weekend, Thanksgiving, now Christmas, New Year's to a point. They do concede New Year's Day to college football. And if they happen to be playing on New Year's Day, college football gets January 2nd. But they also would have probably an opening round playoff on MLK weekend. And the Super Bowl would be, for all the people who have said, boy, it'd be great to have Monday off after the Super Bowl. Oh, yeah, it'd be great. Guess what? They'd like to do it on President's Day weekend. And, Neal, that's what we're talking about here. Neal Coolong, the incomparable one, nobody better. Our good friend, welcome back, sir.
I don't understand the idea of having the day after the Super Bowl off. That's like the busiest day of the year for me. I wouldn't mind it. I know as a kid I definitely wanted it, so I vote for that. Can we change that? Is that what we're doing?
Well, we're going to do that to a point in this exercise today. Andrew Marchand from The Athletic says that the NFL is mulling over the possibility of opting out of their TV deals as early as 2028, with the idea that they can reset the market. I think all of this began with this simple fact. I don't think a lot of people realize, who does ESPN now pay more money to? The NBA or the NFL? They actually pay more money to the NBA than they do for Monday Night Football with the NFL. I think that irked a few people in the National Football League on Park Avenue. Do you agree with that?
I would say, if anything, it piqued their interest. And the idea that they're opting out to reset the market is probably at the top of their short 10,000-foot level plan over the next 10, 15 years. It would only make sense to do that. They want to drive up the price as much as they can. I'd go back as far as this is the reason why NFL Network still exists. They want to be able to leverage their brand not against themselves but against their partners. Drives up the value because they can always say, well, we want to keep this. We can do all this on our own. We really want this price. You're not arguing against yourself in this. So we have the ability to ratchet up demand, whether it's real or not, because we have all these other avenues that we can explore. It only makes sense from the NFL's perspective to want to reset its own market as much as they can. It's probably why they write in the option date when they do. It's, 10 years, I think, something like that, on a 12, 13, 14, 15-year deal, something like that. It makes sense that that's what they want to do, and a large part of it is probably to evaluate their own research and what they've done with their own platform, their own technological advances, if you want to call it that, their own experimentation, things like Christmas Day on Netflix, to find other partners out there. The idea is to drive up the price overall, which I think is just simple business. They're usually going to want to do that. I wonder where ESPN wants to go with it. I don't think that they would want to lose Monday Night Football, and I would imagine they have something of a plan. They're going to put in a bid. I wouldn't think they're just going to tell the NFL now we're not going to be interested, move on now. But there certainly will be another suitor. The question has been, with ratings declines, with stadium attendance dropping, is the product going to continue to be as big? Now, let's keep in mind, a ratings drop for the NFL is deck chairs on the Titanic. I mean, they're not hurting for popularity, but the decline in this generation seems to be connected with a future trend. Where is it going to go? And if you're ESPN, if you're signing on for 15 years and giving another 10-year out option to the NFL, do you project those numbers being where they are the day that you sign it? Are they going to be higher or are they going to be lower? Mm-hmm. I mean, in a way, you could argue it's got nowhere to go but down, but we're talking, this is going to be a multi-billion-dollar deal again, 2-3 times what it was, just with the value increasing the way it does. I wonder how much the NFL wants to put into it and for how long it wants to put into it. They just put a lot into the NBA, and they largely own the NBA now. So it makes one wonder how much of the NFL or how much will ESPN allow the NFL to dictate what the terms of this deal are going to be. And that your guess is as good as mine. A couple of years left before they're really going to explore it. But I would imagine they're still going to have to buy high if they want to continue it.
Well, I think, first of all, if you're ESPN on a business model, you can't afford not to have the NFL. You have to have it because a big part of this deal, I mean, it's not half or anything like that, but I'd say it's about 20% is the ability, because they sign over the ability to carry every single NFL highlight and have permission to do so through this deal. They can't afford to lose that and all the programming that surrounds it.
No, you're exactly right. The programming surrounding it is where they make the money back. Yeah. Escalating costs that go with that. It's interesting because ESPN can kind of look at NFL Network and laugh the way that they handle it. They've done a pretty poor job from a business and an organizational perspective. But ESPN is still thought to be the worldwide leader. And you're exactly right. I mean, they can't afford not to have it, but where that price is going to land for what they're going to do with it, will the NFL overbid, or more specifically, are they going to try to break it up, diversify their presence as much as they can, considering technological advances? You have streaming services. For me, for what I saw in my own home, watching the game and just everything that I read about it, the Christmas Day Steelers versus Chiefs game that was on Netflix looked fine to me. I thought everything worked great. Obviously, not everybody has Netflix, and it's kind of an experimental thing, but they're going to want to continue that kind of thing. Dip into non-traditional outlets to broadcast whatever games they're going to put on. I mean, they want some type of tentpole, but as you and I have talked about a lot, they still wanted to emphasize streaming within the playoffs just to kind of show that they're serious, so they take the least interesting game and stream it, kind of see how everything works. Technology is only going to continue to advance, so that's another product. It might not fit with what ESPN is doing. It makes no difference if ESPN's streaming it or not. I mean, most people have ESPN anyway. But the point is they're paying for the broadcast of the game so they can have the exclusive rights of the highlights, so they can put it on their show following the game. Right. And from there, it's really a question of how many of the highlights can they prevent going out into social media and being broadcast widely to draw attention away from the post-game show, the halftime show, whatever it is. That's a tough thing to control. I shouldn't admit this, but I can tell you 15 different ways to get around that. It's not the hardest thing in the world to do. They're going to continue to fight that battle, though, and to the level they're successful, I guess it kind of remains up to them. But ESPN has to be looking at as this is our everything. You need to help us with this. You guys can't put out a bunch of this stuff on your own. We need to have it for our shows. And therein you get the jockeying back and forth of kind of the dollar incentivized partnership that ESPN and the NFL have. And I wonder what those conversations are going to be. Because to me, it's probably, I mean, obviously it's always about the bottom line dollar, but I really think it's how it's going to be executed now. What other outlets are they going to use? What technology is going to be included in this? How the NFL wants to diversify their product across different platforms, which nowadays I think is the only smart thing for them to do. And I'm not sure ESPN has either the interest or the ability where they sit to really get into that market. I don't know what they have to gain for it, but the core of their media package, I would imagine, will continue to be ESPN.
All right, so there's another part, too, is that, number one, they'll have to do an addendum to the CBA to get the 18th game, and I know they were supposed to talk this summer about it, but that's being pushed back at least 6 months. But if they get the 18th game, in all likelihood, that means, I'd say, 2 buys as a concession, not just one. Labor Day, which is college football's weekend, they'll take over that. They'll have Thanksgiving. They'll have Christmas. New Year's weekend, even though they give college football New Year's Day or January 2nd, depending on what day of the week it falls on. Then a playoff game on MLK weekend. And then President's Day weekend, voila, while you and I are working on that Monday, a lot of people will get that day off. It just seems like this is Patton's Third Army and just dominating and sweeping their way through southern France.
Yeah, right before they start hitting soldiers across the head.
Well,
that's
you know,
a really good point.
I didn't say it was a perfect Army.
That works. I didn't think of that presidency. You're right. I wonder if they wouldn't align it quietly for that reason. I certainly think a lot of people would enjoy it, and that certainly would be a conversation point. But to get the 18th game, this is the way negotiations work, and just for the sake of knowing it in total. It's not as if this conversation has not taken place. It's not as if both sides are not fully ready to get into it. It's a question of who's willing to give what and what they can get on, the remaining 3% when 97% of it is already worked out. What is the NFL going to give the union? That's what the union is interested in. It's less about 18 games. Part of it is going to be a bye, but that's going to be a have to do. Like, if you want to do this, this is the only way it works. What the union's interested in is what can we get back from this? In other words, how much money are we going to get in exchange for this? Because now we got to play even more. And their contracts, keep in mind, are set up per game. They're not set up in a total fashion. In other words, it's structured as you get paid this amount per game. That's how they I don't want to say get around the guarantees, but their structure of payment has always been that way. So if it's 18 games, the players aren't getting more money. They're set for a certain amount per game. This is what they have decided on long in the past, back in the 60s when the NFL really started ramping up. They're going to want a larger allocation overall. How much is going to be probably up to negotiation or what they want to do with that, how the union wants to approach this. Because you've got to keep in mind, too, it's difficult, and it always has been, and this is why they're always at a disadvantage against the NFL. They have to negotiate today for the sake of players 10 years from now, which is really where the impact is going to be. The generation coming up right now, the high school players now who are going to be the first-round picks in 6 years, 5 years, whatever it will be, they're going to be fully used to the idea of playing 17 games. There are still players who are really kind of stuck on a 16-game model. We always knew it was going to go to 18. The question is what the union is going to get from the league in exchange for that. They know that the NFL, the ownership, absolutely wants 18 games. So along with, okay, give us 2 buys. This is how the structure works for us. This is what we want to do. Last time they lopped off a preseason game. Maybe they want to continue with that. Maybe they want to shorten training camp for a week. Things like that make sense. That's what they're going to negotiate. And the efficacy of that is going to depend on where their leadership is and what, in my opinion anyway, how strong a younger and much more outspoken generation of players coming in will respond to this, especially considering you see I probably fair to say better benefits in other professional sports, at least making as much money. I mean, the NBA trades that go on are just insane. They're throwing guys making $16 million a year into these trades. Right. They're going to want to see more money at the top and the middle level, which is, in my opinion, what's been kind of neglected by the union in recent years, giving tangible value increases to mid-level veteran players. I think they're going to want to see an increase in cap dollars as well as an allocation share back to the players. But it's all up to the negotiation. But the NFL really, in my opinion, the only thing they really have left is an 18th game to really go after and negotiate. The rest of them, I think, beyond that, kind of like the last one, I don't think there's all that much of a discussion to be had. I think both sides are kind of, going with the direction of this now. They're used to the idea this is coming up. The players need to sit down and, hammer out something for themselves long term, not just for the current generation.
Right. In other words, one of the things, more money because it's an 18th game, a bye week, an extra bye week in the season because of the rest, one fewer preseason game. Now, at this point, the door's open to talking about the little things. The big things just took care of themselves.
Exactly. And that's usually how these things go. I mean, last time it really wasn't all that contentious of a negotiation, largely because the NFL has all the power. There are 32 owners, but there are 300-some-odd players. When the class structure as massively divided as it is. Your minimum back then, pre the current CBA, the minimum of a mid-level guy was, $775 a year? They gave them a 25% raise, knowing that secures half of the votes because that's, the bulk of the players are going to benefit from that. That's not a substantial loss to the NFL. They know that they have to give a little bit more if they're going to get this. So instead of giving it in total, they're going to say our minimum salary for this level of tenure and below is now going to go up to $1 million, where it is now. That's not. It's a significant increase for a large amount of the voters engaged on the union side. Now, at the time, I forget who it was in this one who was kind of outspoken about it, but in the past, Aaron Rodgers cautioned against it, J.J. Watt. These are guys that were making top-of-market dollars. It makes sense for them from a career perspective, but the players, contrary to opinion from a lot of the owners, are not stupid. They know they're in the game for 3 years. They want to maximize the amount of money that they can get. If they can get an extension, that's great, but they might be done after 3 years, short of their pension. So they want the most amount of money that they can get while they're able to play. So that negotiation appealed to a large block of voters. That's probably what kind of greased the skids to get it through without much of a battle. This time around, though, unless the NFL wants to try doing that again, raise it to $1.3 million or something, I'm not sure that's going to be as easy of a conversation without getting into rev share, which I'm trying to remember what it is off the top of my head. I think it's like 50.3%
something
to the players. Yeah. Right now, you give them another 10th or 2/10 of a point increase, which would increase the salary cap overall, which is how they kind of measure the money that's being spent. Maybe create a 1 year salary floor. That's something I know the union has wanted in the past and naturally would. Right now, it's a rolling 3 year period, which makes it a little bit easier to kind of not spend for a year to load up in subsequent seasons. They have options. My guess would be that the players are going to want something a bit more high level than they've gotten in the past. And they've also known that 17 games really was the temporary compromise. They've known that they're getting to 18 at some point. They've always increased it by 2, and that makes sense, a home and an away game. So with that, too, I don't know, maybe internationals on the table, something they can discuss with that.
Right.
A lot of different options that they have, knowing that, this is inevitable. Let's get the most we can get out of it.
Yeah. In fact, I think they want to go up to 14, then to 16 internationals. That's part of it. Neal, as always, a pleasure. We will talk, believe it or not, in 2 weeks. I am off next week.
2 weeks is good. You enjoy your time off.
Thank you, my friend. Appreciate you.
Thanks for having me, guys. We'll see you.
The great Neal Coolong, brought to you by our good friends at Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummels Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. The News Radio 1070 WKOK.
There's something to be said about a sale with a handshake, a service technician who really knows what he's doing. They can explain it in English what the problem is. There's nothing better than having that friend you can trust in the area. That's Sunbury Motors, where you get selection, knowledgeable salespeople, and prices that fit your budget, and more important, that friend you can trust. Welcome to Sunbury Motors, Kia, Ford, and Hyundai. You can shop other dealers and compare prices, but at Sunbury Motors, you get their lowest price promise. They research the current used vehicle market and guarantee their used car prices are the lowest. If you find a lower price, Sunbury Motors will beat it. 3 dealers all in one. See their full new and pre-owned inventory at sunburymotors.com. Pick out a vehicle you like and schedule your test drive online. Follow them on Facebook. Sunbury Motors Ford and Hyundai, North 4th Street, Sunbury, and Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummels Wharf.
Hi, this is Season. For over 100 years, the Purdy Insurance Agency has been protecting families and businesses of the greater Susquehanna Valley and beyond. With the experience of our trained and knowledgeable staff, you can rest assured that your needs will be evaluated and met by some of the industry's best representatives. No matter what your insurance needs are, call Purdy Insurance today at 570-286-5855. Visit our website at purdyinsurance.com or check us out on Facebook to see what we can do for you.
in-depth look at Penn State sports and more. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. The Steve Jones Show is presented by Brewers Outlet, Sunbury Motor Company, and Purdy Insurance. Now from the Sunbury Motor Studio, here's Steve Jones.
Yes, Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street in Sunbury, the beverage supermarket. Another warm day, warm weekend, so stock up. Imports, domestics, microbrews, the best selection of beer anywhere. Wine coolers, water, soft drinks, snacks. They roast their peanuts fresh and out every day. 6 great flavors of slushies. Ready-to-drink cocktails, High Noon, Jack Daniels, Crown Royal. And the pickle bar, led by the Barrels and the Dills, indeed second to none. All at Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street in Sunbury, the beverage supermarket. Yes. At some point, we're going to start talking about games. I swear to you.
It's coming.
Yeah, it can't happen fast enough. I mean, what do you think? I mean, let me put it this way. What do you think I want to talk about? I want to talk about games. I want to talk about the team. I want to talk about who they're facing. I want to talk about Nevada. I want to talk about Brock Purdy's brother, who's the quarterback in Nevada. But here we are in early July, and they don't have the playoff worked out. What's the format of the playoff? And why does the Big Ten want to have a weekend instead of 1 versus 2, have 3 versus 6, 4 versus 5? Right? Well, the bottom line is they want to get 4 qualifiers, put a little more excitement into that particular weekend, and get more, voila, money. All this stuff is expensive now. My question is, and this is something that nobody can answer, okay? But there has to be a limit on how much money you can spend on an entity.
You know, you would think the amount of money that they have been spending on rights and stuff that we would have reached it yet, but we certainly haven't.
No, we have not reached it. And that's what I find to be amazing, that we have not reached that limit, because the numbers keep going up.
I mean, we talked a little bit about this in the earlier in the last hour about the Big East going to ESPN, and one of the reasons is ESPN wants the other Big East sports for that direct-to-consumer streaming that starts in the fall.
Yeah.
So I wonder how much money. Like, one, I don't know how that works, and that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, see, I have no idea how that works. I don't know what they're aiming at. I keep seeing the commercials like you, and I don't know what it means.
Well, it's in theory, it is ESPN. It's for people that don't have cable.
Right.
It's their. And I don't know how it differs from ESPN Plus, but it's essentially their streaming service. And I know on ESPN Plus, I don't think you can watch the regular programming per se. And I think you'll be able to watch the NFL and all the regular programming on this streaming. But it's also like $30 or $35 a month.
Egad.
I think they're trying to figure out ways to recoup the service fees they've lost with, less and less cable stations and things like that. But I mean, streaming for the most part has been a boondoggle for these companies, and I don't, but they keep spending more and more money on it. I mean, they're spending it on that at a loss. They're spending on sports at a loss. You got to figure at some point the piper's going to have to be paid at some point.
Yeah. I mean, what they spent on the NBA was unbelievably high. And the NBA, you look at the regular season ratings of the NBA, and they're lousy. I don't care what Adam Silver says. They're not good.
Well, I mean, along those lines, I was reading something last week about NBA free agency. And the guy that wrote the article pointed out that it's not that big a deal right now because what teams are doing is aiming for that February deadline.
I know.
And getting their pieces together to make the trade for the big piece in February.
That's right. Right.
And, and I'm reading that, well, that kind of makes November through January pointless for everybody, doesn't it? And I think, and that's one of the things I fear, with doing some of these things with the playoff and NCAA football. Does it devalue the regular season of the NCAA football as much as the NBA has devalued their regular season?
The first part is no, to me, because that was always the argument I had about that was given to me about a 12-team playoff. And I said, no. I said, I think there's going to be more value on the games in November than there were before. Because when they had the 2-team and then eventually a 4-team playoffs, let's just go the 4-team playoff, they were only talking about 6 to 7 teams in the month of November. That was it. Everybody else was an afterthought, thought to be out of it. Well, now you've got 20, 22 teams all fighting to get to that last spot, right? Trying to get to the last 3, 4 spots. So the games in November became more valuable. Something you wanted to stay away from last year is you did not want to be in the 2-loss pool. If you were in the 2-loss pool, that put you into what I refer to as the opinion pool. Okay, let's talk about who they played. Let's talk about who they beat. Let's talk about who they lost to. Where did the loss take place? Must be a severe thunderstorm warning.
Oh, yeah, there was one came through while you were talking to Neal, but, my microphone was off.
Yeah.
It's going to be a little south of us here in Selinsgrove, or in the upper part of Selinsgrove.
But the bottom line is, suddenly in November you had games with stakes. So let's go back to the Ohio State game. As disappointed as the fans were, and I completely understand why, that Penn State did not beat Ohio State that day. I go back to what I said in the postgame show when people were driving away. I said, because of the college football playoff, your team is now in a 4-game playoff to make the playoff. And they won all 4 games, starting with Washington the next week in the whiteout game. Right? Every single week, regardless of the opponent, those games meant something because they needed to win those games. Instead of losing to Ohio State and everybody goes, oh, that's it, no playoff this year, everybody get ready for the Outback Bowl. Right? That's not how it played out. Now it made every game after that, regardless of opponent, an important game because if Penn State kept winning, they were in.
I do wonder if, I guess my question would be not about those November games, because I think Tony's plan probably makes them more impactful. But do we lose the excitement of maybe that Labor Day game in a couple years where it doesn't really matter who wins between Ohio State and Texas, in this system in 2 years?
Well, it depends. It depends. Say, for example, Ohio State beats Texas. So let's just say it's a 16-team playoff year, and let's just say there are 4 automatic qualifiers, okay? So let's take the Tony Petitti model. Fair enough?
Yes.
Ohio State beats Texas. During the season, Ohio State keeps winning, but then loses to Penn State at home. Okay? Now they've got a loss. Say, for example, Michigan then beats them again. Now they've got 2 losses, and they're not in the top 2 position in the conference. And say, for example, now they're in 3rd place because they have 2 conference losses. And they lose to the 6th seed. They can still get into the playoff because somebody will say, you know what, they beat Texas, and Texas is a 3 seed. So that's why you still do need every game, because some of them may end up being a contingency in case you stumble late.
Yeah, but a loss gives them 3 losses now.
And in a 16-team playoff, 3 losses can get you in.
Yeah. All right. I'm just saying. Yeah.
I'm just giving you a wild scenario.
I don't think that's all that far-fetched. I mean, that's essentially what happened to last year's team without the non-league loss early.
Yeah. So, they ended up losing last year to Oregon and Michigan, and still made the playoff. Got in as an 8th seed with 2 losses, and won the national championship.
You're like me. You say Michigan like you still can't believe they lost that game.
I still can't believe that. I will say it is one of the baffling offensive game plans I've ever seen. Because, okay.
Their two best players are defensive line and went in the first round.
Right. I mean, Graham and Grant are sitting there. I know, because I've done enough Michigan games, how good Graham and Grant happen to be. But why aren't you throwing the ball? Will Johnson's not playing in the game. Okay? Will Johnson is not playing in the game. The secondary is depleted, and they're running the ball over and over and over. I'm sitting in the broadcast booth going, what are they doing? I mean, Jack and I are like, what are they doing?
And you have arguably the best receiving core in the country.
You've got Smith, you've got Ibuka, you've got Carnell Tate. I'm like, what in the heck are we doing here?
Yeah, the 2 guys in the backfield you could probably swing the ball to a couple times if you get the ball in their hands.
I know you're and not only that, your offensive line, you've taken your left guard, you made him your left tackle, right? Your center got hurt. I mean, I'm like going, what are we doing here?
There's a good chance that that might be the reason Chip Kelly's in the NFL.
Oh God! I mean, I got to give Chip credit. He was on that day. He didn't do a good job.
There's somebody we could get Matt to rant about in 2 weeks.
What?
I'm sure he has opinions about Chip. That's
it. It's like when we had Merrill on. Oh, Chip. When Chip got fired, Merrill told us on the show, he says, normally you have secretaries crying in the office when the change is made, because they get to know these people and the whole thing. She said, everybody in the office was good that day. He says, that tells you everything.
Mm-hmm. Chip's gone? Oh, that's sad. As somebody who has a big UCLA fan in their lives, too, you can get him to rant and rave about Chip Kelly, too.
Oh, God. And I thought for sure that they were going to see Chip Kelly, and because he was the head coach at UCLA, and told him, I'm out, I'm leaving, I'm going to be the offensive coordinator. He left being a head coach in college football to becoming an offensive coordinator.
And he ended up 2 years later with $6 million from the Raiders, so...
It's unbelievable. I mean, in the coaching world, he's Kirk Cousins.
Hey, it's a good gig if you can figure it out. I need to be the Kirk Cousins of the newspaper or radio world.
Oh, my. I mean, it's like the people just keep giving you money. It's like, and I keep asking myself, I'm not sure where you're earning it. I'm confused. Weren't you the coach at 1-15 San Francisco?
But he was Chip Kelly at one point 20 years ago.
Yeah, with Oregon.
Hey. He's not the first guy to rest on his laurels.
Okay, but enough of the Suits career. All right. Oh, mercy me. It's now he's with the Raiders. So he's with Pete Carroll. So he's back in the NFL. And he doesn't have to be a head coach. I don't think he wants to be a head coach in college because of, look, to be a head coach in college, I have no idea how much credit I give to James Franklin and Mike Rhodes about how they have to deal with everything.
Well, he didn't like to leave campus to recruit, and that seems to be an issue in college football these days.
Yeah, that's an issue. Now, but it's amazing how your life gets in college dissected so much. Okay? I saw a story the other day that people are questioning how often Hugh Freeze plays golf. And they think it's affecting recruiting because he plays golf so often. Are these people nuts?
It's probably so he doesn't beat somebody with a golf club.
Oh, for goodness, yeah. But remember when Joe Gibbs used to allegedly sleep in the office? Remember those stories?
Yes.
Why? That makes no sense. Zero. It's a football game. It lasts 3 hours. There's only so many plays you can call. Why do you need to sleep in the office?
Because you care that much, Steve.
Guess what?
If Hugh Freeze is golfing, that means he doesn't care about his football team. He should be at home in the dark pondering. You make an excellent point. They didn't win a national championship last year. Shouldn't he be all his pursuit be in that?
Brother.
I know you can't talk it, but just the simple fact of what they've done in recruiting the last week shows that he's doing a little bit more than just golfing.
Oh, I know. I know, but I sit back and I see this stuff. Joe Gibbs a great coach. He's okay. He's accomplished so much. Okay, whether it's racing or as a head coach, he's great. But I'm sorry, but there's certain things that don't make sense to me. That makes no sense to me. I've always been of the theory that, hey, look, if you're not ready by Thursday, or in the NFL, this case by Friday, there's nothing you're going to do that's going to change it for you. You either have the personnel to pull it off or you don't. And sleeping in the office ain't going to do that.
I'm sure some of that is for the media. How's that? Telling some of those stories. But I'm sure some of it is true because you see how some of these guys work. But I just, and I think that's, we talked about, practice and only practicing an hour and a half or so for some of these guys. I think that's one of the other things these guys have found, that you need that work-life balance so you don't get burned out when you're 35.
Exactly. Like, he wants to go play golf, and I don't know the guy at all. Do not know the guy at all. But, okay, you need to go out and do something that gets you out of there for a period of time, because I think you're going to come back refreshed and do so. I just think there's got to be some sort of balance.
Well, he's the guy that coached in the bed. He might need just to stretch out his back for a while.